Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to Talkin Movies. I'm your host, the real Geno Reynolds, and today we're gonna be taking a look at... No, wait. Something feels off here. What could it be? Oh, I got it. A little help, Frozone.
Where is my super suit?
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Now, where was I? Let's take a look at the sequel 14 years in the making, Incredibles 2. Set right as the first movie ends, the Incredibles do battle with the Underminer. Afterwards, the damage from the fight leads to a media-led outcry against superheroes. This leads to Winston Deaver, businessman and superhero fanboy, to approach Mr. Incredible, Frozone, and Elastigirl to help him make heroes legal again. He plans on doing this by having the heroes wear cameras that shows them in action so people can see more than just the destruction that they leave behind. While this is happening, a new villain called the Screenslaver begins their reign of terror on the city. So, we waited 14 years for a sequel to The Incredibles, and now we finally got it. Long story short, was it worth it? Well, yes, but while I really enjoyed this movie, it wasn't without its issues, and I'd like to get those out of the way first. First issue, it doesn't feel like it's right after the first movie. The plot of Winston Deaver wanting to change the public's perceptions of superheroes seems like something that would have already happened after the Incredibles defeated Syndrome's Omnidroid in the first movie. Of course, given that there is a 14-year gap between movies, they didn't ever really plan for this, but still, if this guy was there the whole time, and as huge of a superhero fanboy as he is, he probably would have gotten involved a lot sooner. I think a scene of one of his men scoping out the battle with the Omnidroid, along with the Underminer battle, would have helped with this. This is a minor complaint, but it's just an observation. Second, not all the members of the family get their own stories. The reason I say this is because all of them but Dash did. Elastigirl gets to be the forefront of the superhero legality movement. Mr. Incredible has to deal with taking over the household while his wife is working for Deaver. Jack is learning about his powers, and Violet is having boy trouble, and I'm not going to spoil that plot point for you. With Dash, he's just Dash. I don't know if he isn't given much to do because he's the only one from the family to have been replaced actor-wise. Huck Milner replaces Spencer Fox for this movie. I'm going to guess it's because of puberty. But not giving him something really kind of stands out. Lastly, my biggest gripe is the villain. The villain is a bit weak. Now, don't get me wrong. The Screenslaver's methods were kind of cool, and all the reasons for being a villain make sense and everything, but when compared to Syndrome, there's just no comparison. Jason Lee's performance in the first movie carried a ton of humor, personality, and some sadistic charm. The Screenslaver is just kind of there. I was hoping for another villain that was fun, not the same as Syndrome, but still as interesting. Plus, who it ends up being is pretty predictable. A bit of a twist would have been kind of nice, but hey, kids movie. Okay, now that my gripes are out of the way, let's talk about the good stuff. I've been waiting for this sequel for a long time. I mean, ever since watching the first movie and the Underminer popped up, I'm like, when we getting our sequel? Well, I waited a while. So I'm happy to say that other than the minor complaints that I just mentioned, this is still a really fun movie. Is it as groundbreaking as the first one? Not counting everything Part 1 quote-unquote borrowed from other comic properties? Well, no. But for a sequel that wasn't even really planned to exist, it still has a ton going for it. First, this movie is freaking beautiful. While I'm not surprised that it looks better than the first movie, again, a 14-year difference, it's kind of jarring just how much better it looks. Having just watched the first one a few days before seeing the sequel, the difference is pretty noticeable. The animation in this shows that Pixar is probably still the leader of the pack when it comes to the CG animation game. Second, the characters are still as endearing as before. Again, while I was a bit disappointed that Dash really didn't get much of his own story, All the other stories of the family really played to the strengths of the characters. Elastigirl, again played by Holly Hunter, has to leave the life of being a homemaker and mother to once again be a superhero. Mr. Fantastic, again played by Craig T. Nelson, has to put his ego aside and help out at home. This after Elastigirl is chosen as the quote-unquote poster child of the superhero movement. His uncertainty turns to confidence after learning how to handle things as the movie goes along. I will say that of anybody in this movie, you can tell that Nelson has aged voice-wise. There's definitely a difference with his older voice versus his younger voice, but it's not that bothersome. Violet, played once again by Sarah Vowell, is a little angry at her parents for having to make a tough choice after the battle with the Underminer. Both her and Dash have to learn a little bit about responsibility in this movie. That being said, the reason she's mad at her parents is a bit justified. As for Jack, after what we got to see at the end of the first movie, where of course the parents didn't get to see it, the only one that saw it right before he died was Syndrome. Watching him learn about his new powers is pretty fun. I am afraid that it will become a go-to of he's just got the right power for the situation. If they make a part 3, hopefully it won't be another 14-year wait. I doubt it, because they probably don't want the actors to get any older again. Also, he is involved with, by far, my favorite part of the movie. While I don't want to spoil it, I will say this. Jack meets his arch nemesis in this movie in what will be an epic rivalry for years to come. I loved having Frozone back, once again, played by Samuel L. Jackson, but I could have used a lot more of him. I was expecting more of him in this movie. And he got used about the same, maybe a tad bit more as he did in the first one. Of course, Edna Mode also makes a return, once again voiced by the movie's director Brad Bird, and is as funny as ever. Her scenes getting involved with Jack are really funny. Bob Odenkirk plays businessman Winston Deaver, the fanboy turned advocate for superheroes. In this, he's very Bob Odenkirk, which is not a bad thing. It never is. His character, the CG model, even looks like him, which is pretty awesome. Lastly, Agent Rick Dicker is back again, but this time he's voiced by Jonathan Banks, who's taking over voicing duties for the late Bud Lucky. Honestly, he does such a good job that you can't even really tell the difference. I just found out when I was writing the notes for this that it was Jonathan Banks, so that was kind of cool. Also, having the Better Call Saul Breaking Bad connection with co-star Bob Odenkirk. Odenkirk is a pretty cool Easter egg for this, and for a fan of both shows. Lastly, while this may play into the look of the movie, the action in this is really good. Whether the scenes are serious or silly, all of them deliver. Other than our super family and their friends, there are a bunch of other superheroes in this one with a ton of different powers. So there are a lot of different things going on during the action scenes, and they are all really cool. One example would be the character of Void, voiced by Sophia Bush, whose powers would be, well, just think of the game Portal for an idea of what she can do. Some of what she did reminded me of Doctor Strange working with Spider-Man in Avengers Infinity War. Also, the character of Reflux, voiced by Paul Eating, who, fun fact, was the voice of the Transformer Perceptor, asks if acid reflux is a superpower, in which I would say yes. Yes, it is. Now, is Incredibles 2 everything I hoped it would be? Well, no. But in that aspect, I probably set my expectations a little too high for it. Is Incredibles 2 a really good sequel to one of my favorite animated movies of all time? Well, yes. Yes, it is. For the most part, it does what a good sequel should do. Improve in some ways over the original, keep the spirit of the original, build upon the story of the first movie, introduce some new characters, and improve the known ones. While I had a few gripes about the movie, these gripes didn't really diminish my enjoyment of it. This is still a really fun watch, and if you're a fan of the first one, I still would highly recommend it, and I still think you are going to think it's a really good sequel. That's going to be all for this installment of Talkin Movies. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you like what you've heard here, please subscribe to the Real Geno YouTube channel. Also, make sure to like and comment and subscribe. As always, thank you so much for listening. I am your host, the Real Geno, Geno Reynolds. See you later. Up, up, and away.